What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to talk about a couple PlayStation accidents this year. Now, these are actually good accidents that PlayStation has had, and this is something that I've talked to a couple of my friends about, behind the scenes, and I thought, you know what, let me just kind of vent or throw this out there and see what you guys think, because I do think this is interesting. I think it's actually legitimately funny, okay? So let's look at PlayStation as a whole going into this year and as this year goes on, right? They don't got any first-party that was the narrative. They're relying on Final Fantasy, they're relying on Silent Hill, they're relying on this and that. If you go back further, and I guess when Jim Ryan was maybe shown the door, maybe not shown the door, whatever happened, when Jim Ryan was still there, right? The initiative of going very heavy into live service, and I bring that up for a reason. Just keep following me through, right? You have, what exactly is PlayStation doing? The last time they did a big showcase, it was a lot of live service. It seems like they're a company that's trying things, but maybe they don't want to go all the way in. They're seemingly having trouble with it. You got Naughty Dog canceling their Last of Us live service. You got the rumored Twisted Metal being canceled. You got the Spider-Man live service canceled. So what's going on, right? You have all of this stuff happening. Now, okay, Alex, get to the positive and get to the good part. Well, So far this year, what has happened for PlayStation? And this is what I find hilarious. Now, Final Fantasy Rebirth, is my game of the year. Okay, it's the best game I've played so far this year. And you've seen a lot of arguments online of how well that game is doing, right? You can't exactly paint it as an overwhelming positive for PlayStation. Maybe you could in terms of the scores. Critics really liked it. Fans, maybe they were a little split, but I do think there was more love for Rebirth than hate. But, because of the sales kind of looming over it, you can't really, you can't chalk that up as a massive Sony win. PlayStation has had two massive wins this year, at least so far, okay? And what were they? Well, I believe they were kind of accidents. First one, Helldivers 2. Now, I'm going to say this, but I'm going to try to watch the way I'm saying this. They stumbled into Helldivers 2, okay? Helldivers 2, in a way, came out of nowhere. Now, when I say that, just keep in mind, I do think some people saw it coming, and I don't want to keep patting myself on the back, but a month or two before Helldivers 2 came out, I played Helldivers 1 again, and I played it when it first came out, but I stopped. Played it again and loved it. I played it with a friend of mine, and I thought, holy God, I don't remember the game being this good. This game is awesome. And then I started saying in videos, and you can go back to look at this, right? I started saying in videos, I really think the change from top-down to third-person makes all the difference. I really think that's going to work. Now, did I think it was going to be what it was? No. But Sony kind of just walked backwards into this live service success, massive success. And that's why I brought up, okay, you kind of have to look at where Sony came from, right? Or one part of PlayStation that's kind of been up in the air and kind of been controversial and all that stuff. So I find it hilarious that they have, and I mean, look, maybe people have lost their jobs. I don't find that part hilarious, right? But they have tried for years that they wanted to jump into live service, and it didn't really seem like they knew how. You know what I mean? They were just going to kind of go for it. They wanted, 10 or 12 games over a 4 or 5 year span. They delayed a bunch of them. They canceled at least 3 to 5, right? They just shut all these things down. But they were really, 10 to 12 games in 4 or 5 years, that's a lot of live service games, and they were going to try to be as high quality as you might expect from Sony or from PlayStation, right? And then really, I don't think it's unfair to say a lot of that stuff has really failed, or at least it's not actually worked yet. Maybe they haven't been given chances. Maybe some of these games haven't actually released yet, right? Even the purchase of Bungie, you look back and you really start to scratch your head because it doesn't seem like that's working out. Maybe it does eventually, but it really doesn't seem like the best move right now. All of a sudden, out of left field, again, kind of, because I do think some people could have seen it coming. I partially saw it coming, but again, it did reach another level. But Helldivers 2 took the world by storm. Now, they put it on PC, and there were other lessons to learn from Helldivers 2, but I just found that very, very funny that this was kind of an accident. That, I think the relationship between PlayStation and Arrowhead, I think that was formed years and years and years ago. You know what I mean? I kind of feel, and this legitimately is how I feel about the situation. I feel like PlayStation just didn't even almost care. You know what I mean? Helldivers 2 was just in the works. Helldivers 1 had a very solid community. It was small, but it was very dedicated even through all these years. and they were just, chugging away on this sequel. PlayStation was I imagine, PlayStation was very hands-off, just like, hey, yeah, do your own thing. We're worried about The Last of Us. We're worried about the Horizon game, by the way, that's coming. We're worried about this and that. And then all of a sudden, Helldivers 2 comes out, and it's the number one selling game of the entire year. And to be honest with you, I really only think 3 to 4 other games can beat it this year. Maybe like Assassin's Creed or Star Wars Outlaws. Maybe one of them stand a chance. Elden Ring, because of Elden Ring's DLC, that might actually push it. Of course, you got COD and maybe a couple others, right? I think Helldivers is probably in the top 5, and at worst, maybe like top 7 when all's said and done. And if you would have told Sony that, or told me that specifically, at the beginning of the year, I think you'd say, like, what? Did they even plan for something like that to happen? Okay, so what about number 2? Well, to finish off number 1 real fast, because we're switching actual genres here, right? Number 1 in Helldivers kind of fulfills, not fully because you want more than one of them, but it fulfills that everlasting search for a live service game to work, right? And they just backed themselves into it by accident. Okay, number 2, all right, you've had the God of Wars, you have the Horizons, you have the Death Stranding not necessarily owned because of, Hideo Kojima, but you have all these games, and some of them might be big open worlds, right? Sony likes some of the big open worlds, even some of the third-party games like a Final Fantasy, Rebirth, right? You got these big open worlds. Or you have franchises that maybe have been around for a while, right? Like you are relying on God of War. Spider-Man, that was somewhat new, 2018, but it's an established IP. Okay, so what am I getting at? What's another kind of like misstep or something that Sony has seemingly kind of struggled with in the recent history, right? Finding a new mascot, in my opinion. I mean, that's actually something that I have thought about where it's like, okay, not even just necessarily a new mascot, but just a random new IP, right? Kind of out of left field. It just shockingly does well. You can make sequels, and it's not Ghost of Tsushima. It's not The Last of Us. It's not Uncharted. And not that those are bad games, right? Because they're really good. And I love some of them to death. But, just kind of having something a little bit different. And sometimes they've struggled with that. And also in an era where you can't make mistakes. You might not be able to do a Little Big Planet to get a Sackboy. You might not be able to do a Sly Cooper to get Sly right back in the early 2000s. This is an era of huge blockbusters. You need to make a Horizon and then pray to God that Aloy catches on, which she kind of has, but also kind of hasn't. So, so that's kind of where I'm going with this. Well, what's the second accident? Stellar Blade. Now, we don't know, at least at the time I'm recording this, we don't know for sure how well the game is doing. I just have a really good feeling that the game is doing phenomenal. Okay, I really think this game has sold well. Obviously, it is performed well. I mean, myself personally, I love it. I think a lot of people have loved it. You can look at a lot of different, ways of measuring it, I guess. But the game is, I think, killing it. Now, you don't know that for sure in terms of sales. Again, when I'm recording this, they haven't said a number, but I would not be shocked if this was a game that reached 5+ million units, which I think makes it a legitimate thing. You know what I mean? If it comes out and it sells 700,000, it might be a one and done. You might even look at that as more of like an indie kind of thing, right? But for this like bona fide kind of superstar character, not that Eve is actually all that great, because I don't think she has the depth yet. I think she'll get that in future games. But like Eve has become something, and Stellar Blade has become something, and that is a legitimate, I would say, you can't really call it a franchise because it's one game, but I think now it will be a franchise. And I don't know, I've also found that funny. Again, I've also kind of like vented with that with my friends, where it's like, two things that Sony has really struggled with, right? Figuring out live service, and then just kind of having like your random side game that actually really hits. And and like you can keep going with that, right? I mentioned these big games. They cost so much, and they make a lot, but they don't, because they cost so much, you're not making a ton of money. Ghost of Tsushima is probably the one, like, that doesn't fit that, right? Ghost of Tsushima 1 was actually relatively cheap, and it sold really well. But most of them, like Spider-Man, cost an insane amount, and it makes an insane amount, but you actually, like, don't make all that much because of it, right? Well, that's a problem. That's a huge problem for PlayStation. They kind of backed themselves in with something like Stellar Blade. This has become something. Now, unlike Helldivers, I feel like, they have a bond with the studio, and maybe it continues, maybe they try to get on other platforms or whatever. Stellar Blade, while they don't own the studio, they have like really, I think they saw something. I think it's very obvious that they saw something in Stellar Blade. They've helped them. Now they've published both, right? So they're the publisher. That is a very big step, right? But for Stellar Blade specifically, they like went in and like tried to help them and like figure it out and kind of get them on their feet. So like they have a pretty invested. I don't remember fully, at least off the top of my head, if they put money into it, but I think Stellar Blade is very much like locked in. I could see Stellar Blade getting a trilogy and maybe even continuing to sell better and better as the games go on. This worked. You know, I mean, this is a smaller studio, and by small, I don't mean like 10 people, but it's not maybe 400. It doesn't cost $200 million to make. I am positive that it's gonna make its money back if it hasn't already, and it's just become like, and it's solid. It's a solid, successful game, and I feel like, again, it kind of came out of left field. Now, maybe they saw something in it for the last like 2-3 years, right? So they could have seen this one coming, unlike maybe Helldivers, but yeah. So I don't know. I just kind of wanted to throw this video together. I thought that was pretty. To me, I think it's funny that these are things that they've been struggling with, at least in my opinion, they've been struggling with for a while, and it kind of just happened. Now, like, you know, how successful are they? How much does Sony reap the benefit? You know, like, we don't know those things fully, but they have struggled with a couple of these things, and these two games fill it. And I feel like these weren't the games that they had circled to do that. You know what I mean? I feel like it would be other games. And so I wonder how much of like a pleasant surprise, you know, this has all been for PlayStation. Or maybe it hasn't been a surprise. Maybe they kind of knew it all along. But yeah, I just wanted to throw that out there. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. Make sure, as always, you're subscribed to the channel, bell icon turned on, and I hope to see you all on the next one.